Hey guys, this video is for educational purposes only. Please do not break the law. Ladies and gentlemen, today I have a very special guest, Mr. Maxwell Dubin from Across International. Maxwell, you are the Director of Business Development at Across International. How are you doing today?
I'm doing spectacular. Thank you so much again, James, and to Green Thumb Depot for the opportunity. First of all, for the partnership. We're always looking forward to working with folks that value education as much as we do, and it's pretty clear that you guys do. So appreciate again the opportunity as well as the opportunity to join the podcast.
Yeah, and today I'm honestly really excited because we're going to be talking about some pretty heavy stuff. We're going to be talking about some cannabis extraction methods and how to kind of choose which method you should go with. And it's a huge topic and it's a very confusing topic for a lot of people. So I'm super excited to dive into it, pick your brain a bit on it, and just learn as much as I can about it. And hopefully people watching can learn too, because this is a huge topic and it's an extremely profitable topic if you can figure it out. So
absolutely. And I'm really grateful. I've had an amazing opportunity. I've been really lucky. I've been in the industry for a little over 11 years. I've met a lot of different extractor manufacturers, folks that have been working in labs for a really long time. I'm really lucky to call a lot of the folks that kind of, either run or are CEOs in the back end or sales folks on the front end or both for a lot of those other extractor manufacturers as well. So if you or any of the folks out there listening ever have anything that they have questions with, we're happy to be a resource at Across International.
Cool. And before we jump into the nitty gritty of all of this, the deep stuff, I just want to ask you a little bit about yourself, Maxwell. Why don't you tell me a bit about your history? You said you've been in the industry for 11 years. How'd you get started? What brought you to Across International? I'd just love to hear a little bit more about your history.
So my story is a little bit funny in particular. We have a lot of engineers, chemists, folks that really started in the hard sciences in our team. I, funnily enough, started as a packer with Across International, fresh out of college. And I was like a, political science, Latin American studies, creative writing student, kind of disillusioned and with very few job prospects. And I got hired as a packer at Across International when it was a much smaller company than it is today. And I like to say that I packed too slow, but talked too much, but otherwise was learning a lot about the product. So they stuck me in customer service. And then I really got to watch as all the calls started rolling in as far as folks that were doing the first either ethanol or hydrocarbon extractions. And they were basically calling and saying, how do I calibrate my vacuum oven and make sure my oven doesn't burn all my hash, etc. And so it was very high stakes at the beginning because, folks were risking a lot of investment on building a lab is the biggest part of cannabis business a lot of times, but our equipment's pretty economical. It's low barrier to entry. And so for that way, we made it pretty simple for them to kind of learn how to use the equipment, make their extracts and concentrates cleaner and safer for their patients and for them in the lab. So it was a really unique opportunity. I did that a lot and parroted all the things that the engineers were saying until I was tech support, then sold enough stuff in tech support to become sales and kind of just rose up the ladder there. So Across International, I like to be very proud to say that we're a very meritocratic company. So if you work hard, you can do well at Across International. So I kind of rose from that packer position, taping boxes and bubble wrapping, etc., to helping configure laboratories all over the world. So super, super grateful for that.
That's such an inspirational story, and it must feel pretty good to go from just packing the stuff to now you're actually legitimately an expert in the space and you're helping these laboratories all over the world. I mean, I bet you couldn't have imagined you'd be there 15 years ago,
It's beautiful too because it makes you have empathy for everyone in your team. I know how terrible it is to pack a tube or a replacement piece of glass, etc. So we have that understanding in the team. If I need to go help get an order out, I can go help get an order out and get the bubble wrap out. But again, I'm not great at it. I'm better at other things at Across International. So we're really lucky. We've been able to build labs in Europe, Central and South America, US, Asia. So we pretty much have hemp and cannabis labs all over, as well as, serving the traditional sciences for 25 plus years, way before I was on board. So it's a pretty unique opportunity. And definitely I've had the benefit of being able to learn a lot. So I try to educate as much as I can as far as in the hemp and cannabis industry, whether it be tissue culture, extraction, or whether it be in another industry energy, the environment, renewable energy, etc.
Awesome. Okay, so let's jump into it. It's a big topic today. So from my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there's basically about 7 main methods of cannabis extraction. I'm going to list them off right now, okay? Let me know if I missed any of them, but there's 7 that you guys help with at least. The short path distillation, thin film distillation, ethanol, supercritical CO2 extraction, a rosin press, ice water hash extraction, and butane and propane extractions. Is that sound about right? Is that about all of them?
So those are all different processes. Like basically I'd say like there's a couple different like main types of extraction, and then those are all great processes that we get involved in. So there's basically like you have to do an extraction with some sort of solvent, or either like a mechanical or a solvent extraction. So solventless, like either ice water extraction or dry sift, that's generally like a mechanical extraction, versus like ethanol, butane, propane, hydrocarbons. There's also like pentane and other hydrocarbons that could be used for extraction. And then also supercritical CO2, which is a condition of CO2 when you put it under certain temperature and pressure. Those are your main forms of extraction. And so where Across International traditionally comes in, and you were very apt to kind of pick that as the launching point, James, was short path and thin film distillation. Like Across International, traditionally we offered laboratory equipment that would come into the picture after an extractor would take the oil off of the plant. I would always basically break it down as like cannabis oil is essentially cannabis, but minus the pine trees. Like obviously pine sol, all these different products that we make from extracted things, penicillin as well from tree bark. Like these are extracts from plants, and cannabis oil is among the most complex and interesting of those biologies. And so there's a lot of different people approaching it from different ways. Short path and thin film distillation are both forms of fractional distillation, which typically come at the end of whatever extraction. Like an extraction will typically be the initial removal of the oil from the plant matter, removing the pine trees from the plant mass, essentially, in order to create the pine sol. What we were essentially breaking down is that for fractional distillation, which is basically either short path or thin film distillation, they're both forms of fractional distillation. You're basically creating like an odorless, flavorless, highly concentrated and dosable cannabinoid, like THC, CBD, etc., so that you can formulate it into whatever product you want, whatever that be, a vape pen or a capsule or an edible or a beverage or a highly bioavailable nanoemulsion. And so either short path or thin film, that'll come after you've already extracted your oil, filtered out your plant mass and whatever fats, lipids, etc., then recovered out any sort of solvent that you might have been using during the process. And then you're going to distill out anything that remains in order to get like purified oils. So that's where the short path and the thin film come in, kind of downstream of all the other extraction processes.
Okay, all right. So that's quite a bit to swallow and to understand. So basically, from what I'm hearing, is that thin film and short path distillation are both a part of fractional distillation, right?
Exactly. They're both just tools, you know what I mean? Like you could make, for example, food in a microwave or in a convection oven, a resistive oven. They're both just different ways to heat the food. The same way, a short path is basically like a batch system. You'll have like a boiling flask of 2, 5, 10 liters are the sizes Across International offers. And it's like a fixed volume. You load it up, generally half or a little bit more, and you distill out all of the impurities in order to get like a pure cannabinoid fraction. Versus with a thin film, you have a thin film created by either rolling or wiping basically evaporators that create a thin film that can be evaporated to purify that in a continuous formation. So you can keep feeding a vertically oriented thin film rather than a short path is like a boiling flask. You're stirring it with a stirrer, etc. So that's all basically what you're going to do with crude oil after you've extracted it from the biomass in order to clean it up, make it look clean, pure, either yellow, purified, or in some cases they'll even have water clear with certain medias, so it'll look basically colorless. And again, you can either add your terpenes back in order to get those aromas and flavors that were from that original cultivation and that biomass that the cultivator worked so hard for. But then you essentially can dose that with a specific amount of THC, a specific amount of CBD, because as you know, there's a lot of different regulations based on kind of what country you're in, what state you're in. So each business owner is kind of struggling with the guidelines, like how much THC, CBD, how much of these products can I have in my final formulated product? And so our products help you formulate to make that easy.
Hey guys, quick interruption here. I just want to let you know that every single product mentioned on this episode is available for sale at greenthumbdepot.com. We love hearing from growers just like you. So if you mention that you heard about us on this episode, we might even be able to throw in a bit of a discount. You can shoot me a personal email at james@greenthumbdepot.com or give us a call at 833-416-0375. We have the best prices on the internet and the best customer service. Not to mention, we offer free shipping across the continental US with no sales tax outside of Nevada. All right, let's get back to the episode. Got it. And so if someone's coming in and they're thinking about short path versus thin film distillation, what are the benefits of each of them? And why would somebody choose one or the other? Yeah.
For short path and thin film distillation, you're basically deciding kind of what you're going to be your starting volume, how much material you're working with. Like with a short path distillation system, you have either like a 2, a 5, or a 10-liter flask. So you're doing a batch process where you have like between 1 and 5 liters of crude oil that you want to make purified distillate with. So if you're going to be doing more than like 5-6 liters at a time, then you're going to want to use a thin film distillation system, because then you have a heated funnel that you'll be able to basically like load with a pitcher or with a peristaltic or a similar liquid pump. And that way you can continuously distill and do a larger throughput. So it really depends on kind of the size of your business, the size of your lab, how much you're trying to do and work with as far as your process.
Okay, got it. And of course, Cross International, you guys, if someone's interested in this, they can contact you about every detail of this. And you guys supply all of the products that would help with this, correct?
Exactly. So Across International and thus, Green Thumb Depot are a resource for all of the different extraction tools. So typically, again, we focus on like the laboratory equipment, but we're also partnered with a lot of great companies, including, for example, like C1D1 Labs, Western States, Extraction Tech Solutions, Illuminated, basically all the big names in the industry. And so we can essentially offer their extractors, like also, Decimal, Prodigy, Luna, like the names go on, Purge Labs. There's a lot of different companies out there offering extractors. And so we have relationships where we can basically offer you any tool that you might need. But we ourselves, we focus on laboratory equipment. Like that's what we've been doing for 25 years. And it just kind of happened to be, some of the best lab equipment out there, very robust for doing cannabis extraction and processing. So if you need to purge the stuff coming out of a butane extractor or an ethanol centrifuge, we offer like the vacuum ovens, the rotovaps, and the short path and thin film distillation, like you said, James.
Okay, cool. So you mentioned ethanol extraction there. So let's touch on that. How does that work exactly? What are the benefits of ethanol extraction? And, what type of grower should consider this?
Yeah, so basically ethanol extraction is best for formulated products. If you're trying to either make distillate in order to make like vape pens or like edibles or something that's going to be not really like a dabbable product, you know what I mean? Like butane and propane are most traditionally associated with like butter and wax and shatter and sauce, diamonds, and all those different types of products. So butane and propane is kind of the direction you're going to want to go if you want to make that, versus ethanol is if you want to make like distillate, if you want to make capsules, vape pens. I do know some folks that do some great jobs basically preserving the terpenes as a part of their ethanol extraction, but ethanol, it boils at a higher temperature and vacuum pressure than butane or propane. So traditionally the terpenes either have to be recondensed, then kind of salvaged, or they can sometimes be lost and they need to be reinfused. So that's kind of an advantage butane, propane, and also CO2 extraction have over ethanol. But what's great about ethanol is you're basically having either, in the most simple sense, like a bucket or some sort of vessel that has alcohol in it, ethanol. Ethanol is the food grade alcohol, and you're just washing the trichomes and the oil off the plant. So it's really, really simple. The issue is if you do that at room temperature and pressure, it's going to be very green, blackish, because you're going to be extracting a lot of chlorophyll, fats, and lipids, other stuff from the plant you don't want. It's not a very selective extraction. And so that's why we do it cold in a centrifuge, temperature controlled, cryo. We spin out the oil. And then from there, we refine the oil and separate it from the biomass. And by doing that cold at negative 40 C, we extract little to no fats and lipids. And so that way we're able to basically bypass the winterization stage that's often associated with CO2 or butane propane extraction, which is basically freezing and solidifying fats and lipids to filter them out. In ethanol extraction, they're already cold. They're already solid. You can go straight to filtration, and that'll save you like potentially like a 50K plus investment. So it can be a huge game changer for folks that are trying to make formulated products. That's why when people are trying to get in extraction, rather than focusing on what type of extraction like we use, I oftentimes ask them like, what are you trying to make? What are you trying to bring to market? And that way we can kind of choose the path of least resistance and guide them through. This is the production lab that you're going to need to make X product or Y list of SKUs so that you can have your business stocking dispensary shelves.
All right, so that makes things a lot easier for me to understand that basically these extraction methods, typically it's not necessarily, this one's better than that one. It's more, what are you trying to make with these? And you start off with what end result that you want, right? And then that's where you guys can come in and help and be like, all right, you should probably take this route. This is the best for that. So with that information, which is very, very helpful, let's move on to supercritical CO2 extraction. Yeah, let's touch on this. What exactly is it? How does it work? What are the steps? And like you said, what is the end result of this and what is that used for?
Yeah, so CO2 extraction, it's a high pressure, high temperature extraction typically. You're fractioning pressure and temperature to go from subcritical to supercritical. And so the particular advantage of CO2 extraction is you can do a great job fractioning terpenes off one by one. So if you want like great aromatic terpenes, it's one of the best ways to create like a nice terpene profile. And then you can extract your cannabinoids from there. That's where you need the supercritical pressure. The terpene extraction will largely occur in the subcritical pressure. CO2 extraction typically is honestly like the highest cost of entry, highest cost of operation. And for cannabinoid extraction, it can be a little bit lower yield and a little bit higher cost of operation than ethanol and butane propane extraction. That's why it's not as common anymore these days to really see CO2 extractors unless regulators and like legislation in whatever jurisdiction you are demanding it, because lawmakers got in their head that butane, propane, ethanol are bad because if mishandled, obviously it can be dangerous. You can start a fire. You have to very much exercise them with caution. That's why Across International partners with peer-reviewed, certified companies that are going to provide safe equipment. And in that sense, like it's also nice because we're kind of an impartial third party because we partner with all the companies that offer CO2, ethanol, butane, propane. So we're not going to be kind of motivated to push you one way or another. We're going to tell you, oh, you want to make vape pens? Okay, do ethanol extraction. Oh, you want to make awesome terpene extractions? Do CO2 extraction. Oh, you want to really kind of focus on dabbable products? Do butane, propane. And so there's actually CO2 extraction systems out these days that kind of hybridize CO2 and ethanol extraction, because ethanol is a little lower cost and easier as far as extracting cannabinoids versus it really benefits from the CO2 terpenes. And it really kind of, again, it depends on what you're trying to make in order to optimize your lab. But for CO2 extraction, people are making great flavor profiles to compete with butane propane, which kind of naturally, selectively kind of pulls those same propane butane mixtures with terpene mixtures, in order to kind of really give the exact flavor profile that the original strain or cultivar genetic had.
Okay, got it. So I have a question then. With the CO2 extraction methods, is there any reason to go this route if it's not something that the regulators are requiring, right? Because you mentioned that it's more expensive and that you're not going to get as great of a yield. Is it something that you can make more profit off of? Like, why would a business want to go this route?
So it used to be a huge marketing thing that CO2 extraction was essentially solvent free. So you wouldn't use like chemicals like butane, propane, or ethanol in order to extract it. So there was an intrinsic value to the CO2. That being said, like ethanol, butane, propane, like people drink ethanol every single, not all people, but people that imbibe, drink ethanol every single day. And a lot of people consume products that use these solvents all the time, and we don't know that. Like there's solvent hydrocarbon extractions in order to make like Cheetos and other of our, favorite foods in America and all around the world. And for example, like my partner, Cynthia, she's really into stevia extractions. Instead of sugar, you use stevia because it's like a low sugar, low fructose alternative that has 11% alcohol in it. Where did that alcohol come from? It's an ethanol extraction. So I think that the industry's kind of moved on from that value to CO2 extraction. The main place CO2 extraction has now, I feel personally, and again, everyone will tell you something different, but it's terpene extraction. If you want a great flavor profile without using butane and propane, which, they're hydrocarbon solvents and they need to be purged out in order to be safely consumed, and not everyone wants to use them in their process, you know what I mean? It's an alternative to butane, propane, and hydrocarbon extractions. And CO2 does make fantastic terpene products. So that's really kind of its value that it brings versus the others.
Okay, got it. So CO2 typically, the main thing it's used for is just for some beautiful terpenes, if that's something that you're looking to build or, create.
Yeah, and you could do cannabinoids too. We sell reactors for winterizing and solidifying those fats and lipids and filtering them out, as well as filtration systems for prepping that all for distillate, etc. But typically, again, it's a lot of process versus if I offered you, or if you're a Cross International rep or Green Thumb Depot rep offered you an ethanol extractor with a filtration system, you could go much more quickly to decarboxylating in our reactors or recovering in our rotary evaporators and making distillate versus CO2. You'd have to buy this whole other reactor or explosion-proof freezer to freeze your ethanol diluted oil. So it's a process you can skip with ethanol extraction. And then butane, propane, there's a lot of debate there too, because there's fats and lipids sometimes left depending on what temperature you extract at. Most butane and propane extractors are extracting very cold now. And if we were to recommend you a system, that would again be what we recommend, a cold extraction that we would connect a recirculating chiller to. And that would make it so that you can minimize fats and lipids in your oil. But that's the way to avoid them. Otherwise, it's essentially a carcinogen and water weight in your oil, that fat and that lipid. It's not the cannabis oil you're looking for. And so Across International offers ways to essentially filter that out or optimize it so you never extract it in the first place.
Okay, awesome. That's a really great answer. Super informative. And I appreciate it. So let's talk about one that I think is a little bit easier to understand for everyone. Let's talk about Rosin heated presses. These ones, you can just watch them on YouTube. They're great to watch and just watch the wax come out. So yeah, let's talk about those. Let's talk about the products you guys have. What are your thoughts on the Rosin press extraction method?
Yeah, no, so rosin is great as far as low barrier of entry. You can literally squish buds, you know what I mean? And so the one disadvantage is obviously whenever you're heating cannabis, heat is your enemy in cannabis, you know what I mean? Yes, you want to obviously ingest it, you want to vaporize it or smoke it, but generally, you don't want to store your buds in a hot place, you know what I mean? You want to preserve those terpenes. And so butane, propane, ethanol, CO2 extractions, they can maybe preserve a little bit more of the richness of those terpenes than a rosin extraction. But that being said, rosin is a great way to involve no chemicals. It's a simple mechanical extraction. And we offer some great, really simple, easy to use heated presses. You always want to get a rosin press that controls both platens or both plates, because if you're sharing a controller between the two, you're not going to get as precise a temperature control. And so basically you're just applying a pressure and doing that. We have a hand press and a hydro press if you don't want to work your arm. And then we also have great relationships with folks like Access Rosin and Low Temp, etc. So if you ever want one of their presses alongside the solventless extraction systems, the freezers that we sell for storing the buds and the biomass before your extraction, save those terps, or the Harvest Right freeze dryers, we can basically kind of get you whatever rosin press you're looking for. If you're looking for a larger production unit, then kind of our simpler rosin presses that are an excellent value and a great way to get started in the game.
Right. So rosin presses, pretty obviously out of all of these is the most easy to understand, and that's probably the best place to start for a beginner, you'd say.
Absolutely. And again, our rosin presses are a great place to start as well. And then if you're looking for kind of a larger scale or higher performance rosin press, contact us. We'll get you connected. There are companies that do nothing but rosin presses. You know what I mean? They really are specialists and have made it a science. And so Across International, we take care of a lot of other sciences with our distillation equipment, vacuum ovens that we've done a ton of awards for. That's kind of what we made our name for in the industry. And so we partner with companies also we offer Radwag balances and scales made in Europe, which are great for, weighing out your buds or your concentrates. We're not going to reinvent the wheel. We're not going to create our own balance company because people need balances. We're going to make partnerships and make sense of it, and also be basically a curator of all the best products to anyone that comes to Across International or Green Thumb Depot looking to build an extraction or even just a lab or a retail space.
Okay, so rosin press is obviously a pretty easy to understand, pretty good barrier to entry. Another low barrier to entry method is the ice water extraction methods, and you guys carry some of these products as well. Would you agree that that's a pretty easy way, maybe even a little bit more difficult to understand, a little bit more difficult to get into than the rosin press? But yeah, what are your thoughts on the ice water extraction method?
Well, so they're both in the solventless extraction method category. So you're not really involving any chemicals. You're using water and ice. It's a mechanical extraction. So in that sense, like you're not going to need a C1D1 or a C1D2 or otherwise like explosion proof or classified room. So in that case, it's simpler for your jurisdiction, you know what I mean, for setting up your lab. And we offer some really great solventless extraction systems. Like we have a great partnership with SC Filtration, Sambo Creek. They offer the Mezclatore, which is a system that not only offers the ability to do ice water extraction kind of continuously through swappable trolleys, but it offers an ultrasonic extraction optimized method that can increase your yield for food grade material up to 10%. So Cross International, we very much believe in working towards the success of hemp and cannabis businesses, any businesses we partner with, but particularly like, you know, botanical extraction industry faces unique challenges as far as funding, et cetera, and regulation. So we want to make sure that the extractions are as efficient as possible and you're getting the most out of that cultivation that you worked so hard for. And so with ultrasonics, you can essentially increase the yield of food grade material by 10% to any extraction. And so in that sense, the Sambo Creek SC filtration system that Across International offers is unique and is kind of apart from the other offerings. We have also great partnerships with other companies like Access Rosin and Hashtag and Low Temp, et cetera. Like folks that use our equipment in their labs as well. But that's kind of our flagship system that we offer. You know, it's a little bit bigger than some of the ice water extraction systems. It's not your isolator system that you're getting from the pollinator guys and Mila, the Hash Queen, et cetera. It's not one of those smaller washing machine styles. It's a bigger system. You know, starting price is probably going to be like, 15, 16K. No matter what your starting investment is with your laboratory, like Across International is going to help you get the most bang for your buck. You can get into a lab for as low as, 4 to 5 digits and then kind of build from there, expand your laboratory and kind of prove your purpose in order to kind of build that business for you.
Awesome. And I do want to touch on that again because I have a few questions at the very end of this. Get your advice on, the best beginner methods and all that. But before we get there, I just want to touch on the last method, which we've talked a little bit about, but just maybe you can expand a bit more on it. And that's the butane and propane extraction methods. This is with your guys' vacuum drying ovens. And why don't you tell me a bit about this? And again, who is this for? What are the benefits of this versus the other extraction methods? And anything else you can share about it?
Yeah, so butane and propane is really kind of the roots, I think, of the extraction industry beyond like kind of the solventless dry sift method, like very simple, kind of like rubbing trichomes on a screen, which then evolved, you know what I mean? There's great folks out there like the Original Resonator, who's also a partner with Across, and they kind of have optimized with CO2 extraction, the trichome removal. But that being said, like getting it essentially in a tube and extracting with butane and propane, that was like the original method that people were using to extract. And they were doing this in a dangerous environment, oftentimes without vacuum or not in an explosion-proof environment. Like the industry has come a long way to make it a lot safer. And so our product was always what made the product safe for the consumer, the patient, is the vacuum oven, taking the butane and propane out and lowering the temperature at which that butane and propane will bubble out and evaporate, which is why sometimes you see like the muffin in the oven. It's lowering the temperature at which that evaporation is occurring in order to preserve the terpenes and the flavors and aromas that, again, worked so hard for in the cultivation. That's what you want to save in your extract. And so our vacuum ovens were crucial for that. We won a lot of awards for them, like Expo Grow Runes, Best Product, and 3 consecutive High Time Stash Awards, etc. Like people love our vacuum ovens. We've got a lot of vacuum ovens out there, but the industry, again, it's come a long way. It keeps evolving. And so we want to stay ahead of the curve and offer the most state-of-the-art solutions for our customers. And so Across International has formed partnerships with SpinTech Purge and FlakTech, who offer centrifugal purging systems that can purge cups of extract in minutes. And so it depends really, again, on what kind of end product you're making. If you're looking for like diamonds, or if you're looking for like that terp sauce diamond texture or shatter, like specific products, you're going to need our vacuum ovens. You know what I mean? But if you're simply looking to purge out butane and propane to make a safe product for your patients or your consumers, then a lot of these new centrifuges out there will get you kind of to your end goal a lot quicker. So it's a matter of what to help you make and fulfill that order for your dispensary or your local partner quickly. Who's going to make it happen essentially for you? And so we try to be the partner that's going to make it happen for those businesses so they can make it happen for the people that are fulfilling orders for.
Awesome. Great information. Great information. So I do have a couple final questions, just kind of, I guess, because this is a heavy topic. I'm learning a ton, but it's hard to keep up. I'll be totally honest. This is a very complicated subject for people. So let's say money is not an issue. I've got a ton of investment. I've got a bunch of yield. I'm trying to optimize for the most profit possible. I don't care about how much the investment is. I just want to make sure that like I'm going to get the best bang for my buck. Let's talk about at scale. Which method would you recommend for that?
Absolutely. So always start with like, what's your goals? Like, what do you want to bring to market? What's your product? Because at the end of the day, like people are building their brand. People are trying to decide what products they're going to make their name for. So I'm going to start there. But if you're trying to do like diamonds and sauce, dabbable oils, things that people are going to be vaporizing, like if that's the culture that you're going after and the product SKUs that you look for, butane, propane's absolutely the way to go. Our vacuum ovens are always going to make award-winning products as long as the starting material, the flour, or even the trim, in some cases, a lot of people will even save their flour purely for selling as a flour SKU and use basically kind of trim and things they wouldn't traditionally use in order to make great extracts and products. I've seen people win cups and trophies with trim products, just because they did a great job with that extraction and they had a great cultivation, great cultivar genetic. That being said, like if you want to get the most yield, like you want the most oil out of your starting biomass, I'd always recommend an ethanol extraction because ethanol is a really, really aggressive solvent. It's going to almost bleach your flour. And the way that the industry has come along, the way that Across International is going to approach it, we're going to chill your ethanol extraction to the perfect temperature where you're maximizing your cannabinoid yield without getting anything you don't want from the plant matter. So you're going to have maximum oil to either bottle up in vape pens, tinctures, edibles, highly bioavailable nano emulsions. We have product offerings from Industrial Soda Mechanics who patented the barbell horn. They can make essentially like a water-soluble beverage, like a clear beverage, maybe like a CBD water or a THC water, that type of product. And not only will it be transparent or translucent, which, has its marketing appeal, but it'll also be more bioavailable. So rather than waiting, 30 to 60 minutes plus to feel the effect, you can have uptake for patients and relief in minutes. And it's very repeatable, very dosable. It takes a lot of the voodoo out of edibles. And so if that's the route you're going, I would do ethanol extraction. And then again, if you said money was no object, so I'm going to have everything. I'm going to have a CO2 extractor for my terpene extractions so that I can use those formulated terpenes with the cannabinoids I extracted in my ethanol extraction in order to make some award-winning vape pens. If we don't want to just do some really great rosin pens, because there's a lot of great tech around rosin too. Like, I'll be honest, like I am not an expert on solventless as much as like the solvent chemistries, because solventless is newer. I'm an old dog. I've been doing this for 11 plus years. So solventless, I know some folks and I'm partnered with some great folks. Like shout out to my boy Maple Butter. Shout out to, Davenport Extracts, folks making award-winning solventless extracts out there. Like, they'll tell you better than me how to make award-winning terpene-rich solventless extractions. And that's another thing Across International offers as a resource. Like, we're partnered with different award-winning extractors all over the world. Like, I don't know if anyone still remembers Roji, who's now 2Terpy for You on Instagram, and also Got Terps. There's a lot of great extractors out there making award-winning products, and we can connect you to some of those folks. If you're willing to pay for their consultation services, you can have an expert that has worked in the lab since day one, building out your lab with across international equipment. That's kind of all the resources we could bring to the table.
Awesome. That's really cool. And I will comment on that. I mean, Across International, you guys are amazing partners working with you. Such a wealth of information. I absolutely love working with you guys. Always happy to answer any questions. Always happy to connect us with anyone that we need to, So I will comment on that. You guys are awesome to work with. So my final question I have here is, I'm a beginner. Let's say I'm a beginner coming into the space. I've got good, let's say 8 plants or so. And I'm like, yeah, all right, cool. I've just harvested. Like, what route would you suggest for me to go into, right? I mean, I would assume it'd be solventless extraction, but what are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely solventless. You're right on the money, James. So like, you don't want to do a butane, propane, or like an ethanol extraction. You can do something rudimentary. You know what I mean? I know people that do like Rick Simpson oil, RSO, and like full spectrum extractions, and they get real relief, from different ailments out of it. And I'm not going to tell those folks not to do their traditional extraction methods, but if you're going to try to make a business out of like a product that people want to buy because it's like nice looking and yellow and smells pretty, it doesn't have chlorophyll in it, etc., you're going to want to do a solventless extraction. I'm sure, Green Thumb Depot, you guys, I'm sure, offer a lot of, and we have a lot of great things coming soon. Stay tuned from Across International. New things coming out every day and new partnerships. I'm sure you guys offer some of the, the smaller ice water extraction systems that are pretty low barrier to entry. Like, you can get them generally for under $1,000, you know what I mean? And then a rosin press, or if you want to use one of our rotovaps to evaporate out the water, or just kind of use traditional drying methods, or put it in a freeze dryer or a vacuum oven. I know folks that use either harvest rate freeze dryers or Across International vacuum ovens for drying the water out of solventless extractions, like ice water extractions. And so you can make some great products that way without building an explosion proof room, etc. And so you get some SKUs on the table, you know what I mean? You're bringing some products to market, you have some things on the shelf. And then from there, if you want to expand to bring another product to market, then you can kind of strategize, okay, I want to get an ethanol extraction lab, or okay, I want to get a hydrocarbon extraction system, etc.
Okay, awesome. That's a great place to start. And my final question is just a little bit of peace of mind for people. What is your guys' typically like warranty policy on your products? Obviously, you guys have some pretty legitimate certifications, but when it comes to making sure that this investment is going to pay off for them, I mean, that they're not going to have to worry about the product going bunk or anything like that. What type of protection do you have for your customers?
Yeah, so anything from Across International is going to come either UL certified for compliance in the US, CSA for compliance in Canada, CE for compliance in Europe, third-party peer engineered review, oftentimes for explosion-proof equipment, etc., or some combination of all of the above. And so we always have that conversation when you're first building the lab. It's like number one conversation. It's like, how much space you got and what certifications do you need? You know what I mean? And what electrical do you have in the building? And then from there, we can kind of figure out what we're going to get you. But as far as warranty is concerned, like, we have engineers in our Livingston, New Jersey facility. I noticed that Green Thumb Depot is out of Livingston, Texas. So from Livingston to Livingston. Livingston, New Jersey, Sparks, Reno, Nevada, the biggest little city, and Melbourne, just out of Melbourne, Australia, and Victoria. So those are our 3 locations that our engineers are going to be supporting you from, shipping spare parts, etc., answering any questions. And I work out of the New Jersey facility, for example, but we also have great partners such as yourself, all over the world, helping folks locally. And anything from Across International is typically going to come with a 1-year warranty. Other than, for example, like our award-winning vacuum ovens come with a 2-year warranty, just because the UL, CSA, and CE certified ovens with all 5-sided heating, which is like the best uniformity in the industry. So best uniformity as far as all the different products you're purging in your vacuum oven. That's going to come with a 2-year warranty. Our SuperVac vacuum pumps from Agilent, a partner that we use for oil-free pumps, will come with a 2-year warranty. And also our freezers, which are crucial for really any cultivation or operation that really cares that much about the buds, because you're going to want to store your flower and your trim and your biomass in an ultra low freezer in order to preserve those terpenes. And so we have negative 86 Celsius rapid chill freezers that were instrumental in the COVID-19 epidemic, as well as all other different types of vaccine storage, medical, pharma usage, etc. And they're also great for storing your bud, for your flower. And they come with a 5-year warranty for the compressors, 3 years for all electronics, and 2 years full service, which is an industry-leading warranty. And we did that again because we know they're going into medical, facilities, hospitals, pharma labs. They need to be reliable. And so we stand by our products.
Awesome. And yeah, we've heard from customers that have purchased with you guys before. They love it. And I mean, you guys have a laundry list of certifications. And so typically customers are going to be pretty good shape when they purchase with you guys. So Maxwell, I just have a couple more questions, just kind of fun questions to get your more of like your opinion on the industry and where you think it's going. I always like to ask people, especially someone like you who's been in the industry for so long and has so much experience, what are some of the biggest changes you've seen in the industry in the past, let's say 5 years or so?
Regulation definitely, obviously, is one thing that has evolved for better and for worse. I think literally today, as we record this podcast, the DEA declassified cannabis from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3. So that's huge news. Hooray for us. Or I don't know if I'm not an expert on the classes. I don't do as much the legal side as the scientific side. So I'll get the details later, but regulations changed a lot, and that's why across International, really, again, we try to stay ahead of that regulation and make sure you're going to have all the certifications in compliance, because I've seen people buy their entire laboratories twice. You know what I mean? And so that's why the earlier that, a hemp or a cannabis business owner can get us involved in the process of building the lab, the better, because then we can kind of figure out from there what they need and make sure they make the proper investments. And other than that, the quality of products has come a long way. Diamonds and sauce was not a thing 5 years ago, other than from folks like I had never heard this one. I don't know if you've heard of this one, James. I only heard this from a buddy, and he saw it from a meme. People were talking about using like a pot or like a kettle to pressurize it, like, steam making tea, but they would use that as like a makeshift diamond miner. Incredibly dangerous. Across International does not recommend these methodologies, but like people were doing such wild things at the onset of the industry. It was awful because it was not regulated, and so they couldn't do it in a safe, regulated space. But at the same time, it was beautiful because that's why we're talking about like 4 different types of extraction and all these different types of distillation. Like the organic methodology with hundreds of people all around the world, thousands of people independently started figuring out how to make cannabis oil and medicine, you know what I mean? And then kind of just compiled all their notes together at these cups and events when people finally were able to come out of the shadows legally. Like, that was a very, very magical thing to witness, you know what I mean, to have that scope. And so at some point, I really want to like write a book about it, you know what I mean, because I've seen some wild stuff and I'm really grateful for that. And I'm really proud of where the industry has come. I think that definitely, there's certain people that are more committed to the plant and the quality of the flower and the oil than others. But that being said, like the industry has come a super far distance, and I'm really, really proud of kind of all the folks that led the way. And we're really, really honored to have been a part of that, providing them equipment to make it safer, make it better, and help them do their science, just like all of our other customers that are, figuring out how to get to space or get underneath 10,000 leagues under the sea, etc.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you came out with a book about the wild west of the cannabis industry back in the day, I'm sure it'd be very interesting. It's awesome to hear you talk about like just the different ways that people used to do things, how creative they were, and shout out to the cowboys of the Wild West back then for playing around with all that stuff, because they've definitely gotten us to where we are today. And I mean, as someone who's been in the industry for so long, it must be really cool on your end to see how things have progressed. And, I guess we'll probably just start, and there's probably a cool technology that'll be coming out in the next few years as well, probably from across International. So I'm excited to see it, and I'm excited to be part of the industry as it grows as well.
We thank you so much. Partners like you, partners like Green Thumb Depot that really value education, that provide these guides, publish these resources, record these podcasts, and invite folks like myself to just kind of talk about the stuff that you could always call us and hear about, but not everyone's going to call. Not everyone's an extrovert like that. Some people want to, in the comfort of their home, you know what I mean, be watching and recording. So thank you for everyone that listened. And thank you so much for the platform, James. And I can certainly say, like, one thing I've learned over the many years is, like, don't try everything at home, especially without asking everyone first. Like, there's equipment now to do things safely. And, there's a reason that there's a licensing process. As much as we have love for the cowboys, I would definitely not necessarily always recommend going cowboy. boy and following in their footsteps, but I do salute the folks that have brought the industry where it is today. And I really appreciate folks like you that are helping educate folks that are trying to get involved, because it's a community as much as it is an industry. And there's a lot of people that have a passion for it. So giving them a way to learn about it is really also a treasure and a huge service.
Awesome. And yeah, to everyone listening, if you guys are ever interested in any of the products that were mentioned today, give us a shout out, give us a call. We'd love to be able to help you guys out. We have a very close relationship with Across International. And yeah, we'd love to help you guys out and get you guys started in this wonderful industry. So Maxwell, thank you so much for joining me today. I learned a ton. There's still a lot more to learn, obviously, but I appreciate your wealth of information. And yeah, have a great day.
We're here for it, James. Thank you so much. And footnote, PS, ask us about mycological extractions. Have a wonderful day, everyone.